wife Angie and I live in North Texas. And if you've watched some of our other vacation videos, you'd know that we go to Florida. A lot. What can I say? We love the beach. But you know what? Texas has a coastline too. And it was high time we checked it out. So in the spring of 2024, we spent a few days out on Galveston Island. And while it's not quite as pretty as Miami or Fort Lauderdale, there was certainly no shortage of fun things to do and see. So grab some popcorn and join us for another one of our out-of-town adventures. I'm Mike Galgano, and we're calling this one Gallivanting. As our vacations usually take us out of state, this is the part where I would normally stick the plane footage. But we're staying in Texas, so it's road trip time, partner. Galveston is a barrier island in the Gulf of Mexico, about 50 miles southeast of Houston. At average highway speeds, it's about a 6-hour drive from where we live. And here we are, going through the Big D, and unlike Mark Chestnut, I do mean Dallas. Following signs towards Houston, we started down Interstate 45. Now, when you're going over 300 miles, there's bound to be some pit stops to fill some things up and, well, empty others, if you know what I mean. And no road trip in Texas would be complete without stopping at Buc-ee's. In fact, we hit 2 of them on our way down the interstate. As they say, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, Buc-ee's is a Texas-sized gas station and convenience store where you can buy just about anything from freshly made barbecue, souvenirs, clothing, and more. Aside from that, they boast the cleanest public restrooms in America. But that you'll just have to see for yourself. As you make your way south towards Galveston, I-45 takes you alongside the greater Houston metro area. We made a quick detour to grab a few of our favorite Vietnamese snacks in Bel Air before hopping back on the Sam Houston Tollway to pick up I-45 again. About an hour later, we reached the causeway that would take us across the bay to the island. Making our way through town, we finally turned a corner and caught our first glimpse of the Gulf of Mexico as we reached Seawall Boulevard. Our hotel was just a few more minutes away. We stayed at the Marriott Courtyard, Galveston Island. It turned out to be a great location as it was far enough down the seawall to be away from the crowds, yet a short drive to all the action. By this time, it was late in the day and we were ready for our first meal on the island. A quick Yelp search landed us at Miller's Seawall Grill. We were very lucky to grab the last parking spot, which was practically falling out of the lot. With the sun starting to set, full from dinner and tired from the long drive, we got settled in early so we could start exploring the island the next day. Our first morning in Galveston started overcast and misty, but as the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in Texas, just wait an hour. Sure enough, gray skies gave way to blue, so we decided to head over to the bay side of the island near the cruise ports. Our first stop was the Fisherman's Wharf, a seafood restaurant we had seen in some other travel vlogs. It was cool and comfortable on their waterfront patio. After lunch, we got our tickets for the next boat leaving from Pier 21 to enjoy a 45-minute cruise from Baywatch Dolphin Tours. The tour guide was funny and informative, and we were fortunate to catch a few glimpses of these beautiful creatures. After getting off the boat, we took a stroll around the pier area and then headed a few blocks over to the historic Strand District. This area, once referred to as the Wall Street of the South, was a thriving financial center of the Gulf Coast in the 1800s. These centuries-old buildings have been repurposed with modern-day galleries, shops, and eateries. You will see a lot of interesting architecture, artwork, and basically a bunch of cool stuff. All that walking around worked up our appetite, so we made our way back to the seawall for dinner. If you're looking for a multi-level waterfront venue to enjoy burgers, seafood, tacos, and more, then this is the spot. Literally. We opted for a table upstairs to give us the best view of the water as our second day in Galveston came to a close. Okay, so remember how yesterday started cloudy and the sun eventually came out? Not so much on day 3. So with the forecast calling for drizzle at minimum, today we decided to head back over to the mainland to check out the NASA Space Center, which is about halfway between Galveston and downtown Houston. While the weather was still dry, we checked out the outdoor exhibits first. As you approach the facility, you can't miss the gigantic Boeing 747 with the space shuttle riding piggyback. Next to these larger-than-life vehicles is a 3-story building which allows you to go inside each one. While this shuttle was just a replica, the 747 was one of the actual planes used to transport the spacecraft across the country. That in and of itself was an incredible feat of engineering, which along with other fascinating pieces of information about the space program, you can learn all about as you tour the plane and shuttle. This was the highlight of our visit to the Space Center so far. I remember watching the shuttle on TV as a kid in the 1980s. I never dreamed I would one day get to go inside a full-scale replica of one. Making our way inside the Space Center, we saw many cool exhibits highlighting the various U.S. missions to space and the vehicles involved. We even got to touch a moon rock. I don't have any pictures of that, however, as I was too busy putting on hand sanitizer. Who knows how many people touched that thing before we did. Of course, not everyone believes we actually went to the moon, but we won't debate that here. Okay, did I say the highlight of the facility was the plane and space shuttle? That was before we took the tram over to Rocket Park, which is just what it sounds like, a park full of rockets. Outside were some pretty cool ones to look at, but the true gem of the park was housed inside a giant hangar, the Saturn V rocket. Many of us have seen the famous Apollo 11 launch footage from the 1960s with a Saturn V sending the capsule into orbit. It's really something else to be able to stand next to one of these in person. Nothing can prepare you for the sheer size of it. The Saturn V is a little over 360 feet tall and 33 feet in diameter. And although the camera really doesn't do it justice, you can get a sense of the incredible scale of this rocket compared to the people standing next to it. After taking it all in, we boarded the tram back to the main facility. And just in case you forgot we were in Texas, here are some Longhorns that live in another section of the campus as part of an agricultural program for students. On the way back to Galveston, we took a slight detour to visit the famous boardwalk in Kemah, Texas. The plan was to walk around the boardwalk after dinner, but by the time we were done eating at Bubba Gump Shrimp, it started pouring. Once it let up enough to make it back out to the car, it was getting dark, so it was time to head back over to the island and call it a day. Day 4 once again started off with cloudy skies, but our itinerary for the first part of the day was another indoor attraction. This time we stayed on the island and headed over to Moody Gardens. Moody Gardens is a large complex comprised of a hotel, spa, golf course, and several attractions. Its prominent features are 3 pyramid-shaped buildings which house a museum, an indoor rainforest, and the one we were visiting, the aquarium. We were first greeted by a group of penguins who waddled about on land before diving in for a swim. Around each corner there were countless species of aquatic animals to see. Fish of all shapes, sizes, and colors. There were even a few sharks which were magnificent to view from this vantage point. Wouldn't want to see them at the beach. In addition to things that swim, there were all kinds of plants and coral. It was like snorkeling without getting wet or having to hold your breath. In one darkened room, there were various tanks of jellyfish lit up by color-changing lights. Again, nice to see them here on the other side of the glass versus heading your way while swimming. One of the things I always enjoy in an aquarium is when they set up tanks like a tunnel for a truly immersive experience. After seeing everything within the pyramid, we took a stroll along the water outside before leaving the complex. Okay, so here it was day 4 on an island, and we hadn't even been to the beach yet. Our next stop was Stewart Beach, which, from what I understood, was supposed to be the main public beach on the island. As I mentioned earlier, we're used to vacationing in Florida, so the sand and surf was certainly not as scenic in comparison, but we had to check out the beach to see it for ourselves. To be fair, it was a weekday and we were in town the week before spring break, so it made sense that there was barely anyone there and not a whole lot going on. Perhaps it's different during peak season, but in hindsight, it wasn't worth the price to park, especially when you can enter the beach for free most places up and down the seawall. Oh well, you live and learn. Heading back south along the seawall, we paid a quick visit to the historic Grand Galvez. This lavish and luxurious hotel, often referred to as the Queen of the Gulf, was established in 1911. Like the island, city, and county of Galveston, the hotel's namesake is 18th century military leader Don Bernardo de Galvez. Galvez and his troops played a role in America's fight for independence by driving the British out of the southeastern United States. Walking through the beautiful lobby of the Grand Galvez is like being transported back to the turn of the century. It's no surprise this 4-star property is a popular venue for weddings and other special events. Just down the road, we took a peek at the famous Galveston Pleasure Pier, an amusement park built on a wharf extending around 1,000 feet into the Gulf of Mexico. We're not much for roller coasters and fair food, so we didn't actually enter the park. Nevertheless, it's a colorful sight to behold as one of the most prominent and iconic entertainment venues along the seawall. Directly across from the pier, we decided to have a late lunch/early dinner at Fishtails. The view from the upper deck along with the delicious food made it one of the best meals of our whole vacation. Next, we decided to walk off our dinner by strolling along the seawall, which in some areas is as much as 17 feet above the water level. In addition to stairs down to the beach, there are plenty of rocky jetties for fishing. We came across a wide, paved jetty, which made it easy to walk out towards the water and catch a panoramic view of the pleasure pier. Just before nightfall, we explored a large souvenir shop called Murdoch's, with 2 indoor stores connected by an expansive open-air balcony, complete with rows of rocking chairs and a view of the Gulf. As the sun set on our last day on the island, the pleasure pier and surrounding businesses burst into color with the warm glow of neon. The weather all week so far had been pretty mild and on the warm side, so it was a big surprise to wake up to a sudden drop in temperature our last morning in Galveston. Trading shorts for jeans and a light jacket, we checked out of the hotel and headed down Seawall Boulevard and over the causeway one final time. Now, even though our vacation was technically over, we did have one more fun activity planned that day. I have a friend and former coworker who lives in Montgomery, Texas, which is about 50 miles north of Houston. We made plans to meet him and his wife for lunch as we made our way back north towards home. We timed our departure from the island to arrive in Montgomery a little after noontime and met at the Water Point Plaza on the shores of Lake Conroe. We had a tasty meal at Monty's Lighthouse and then spent some time walking along the waterfront. It was a really nice way to finish off a wonderful vacation before getting back on the road for home. Traveling back up I-45, you can see a giant statue of Sam Houston, who was a prominent figure in Texas history. Can you guess what city was named after him? Of course, we stopped at the same two Buc-ee's on the journey home. This time we even got to see the man, Beaver himself. By the time we made it to the second Buc-ee's, it was already after dark. About an hour or so after that, we entered the final stretch of our drive as we cruised past downtown Dallas. The whole round trip was a little over 850 miles. We had a great time and we're so glad we could share our memories with you. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.